to be before you. It is a pleasure to be before you this evening, afternoon, morning, depending on where you're joining us from. And just as a background to the importance of this delivery, I was in a meeting with some clients, high stake clients, and within 15 minutes or so, they had mentioned the transition, the change, guidance, ISO 27001 over 20 times. People are looking for help. People don't know how to take out the information that is necessary for them. Those that are going to be newly certified, and those that are even already certified want to know what it'll take to transit to the new standard that was released in October. So we're just barely 2 months into it. And so it's the right time to plug yourself into GRC, as much as Wally said. Plus, all of the other modules in the bucket, as he's also mentioned. So I hope we take this as seriously as it is. It's a smart learning delivery and organization of the course in collaboration with CyberPath Insight, which is the training arm of my company. And as Wally said, we've done this many, many times before. And you, at any point in time you want to ask any question, please stop me and ask me the question. I'll be happy to take your questions as well. So it is the ISO 27001 transition guide, and my name is Roy Biak. I've been doing this now for 22 years, and in 3 months from now, it'll be 23 years. I love to count. I love to count. It gives me the idea that I'm doing what I learned. I've been doing it for a while, and I hope we meet in the small arena that information security is, or even cybersecurity, if you like to call it. So that's what I do. I'm in GRC. I now work with a company called GemServe as the global GRC leader, and I've done risk and compliance GRC all the way from Accenture to Severn Trent Water to BGL, Compare the Market, and Shell as well. Please, when you have a question to ask, so that it's not just us delivering that know each other, if you have any question to ask, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and where you do what you do. Yeah, so please, if you have any question, just introduce yourself and tell us. ISO 27001 is also referred to as the Information Security Management System. And of course, ISO is the international organization for standardization. They have created so many standards, over 47,000 standards, because anywhere there's a market need for a baseline, a way of measuring whether there is benefit, or where customers want to know, am I going to get any benefit engaging with so and so establishment, entity, or organization? ISO steps in to create a standard. As a matter of fact, there is an ISO standard for brewing tea. The ISO 3103 standard is a standard for brewing tea. So anywhere there needs to be a reason to hold organizations accountable for what they do, commercially or non-commercially, a standard is created. And so, because there are risks, security risk, information security, cybersecurity risk, ISO 27000, the body of standards, the family of standards in the 27000 series, have 27001 as the primary standard. And that's where this change has come now, because it's been on since 1st of October 2013. And that's the standard for ISO standards, that they have a cycle of revision, of review, which is why this current standard we're discussing tonight was released in October. So you would expect that the cycle would always fall in October. This 2022 standard replaces the older edition of 27001, which was 2013. Some other standards would have been released 5 years, because the cycle is usually 5. But as you can see, it's close to 10, which is because they have waited for the GDPR to come out, and this standard has now changed to include privacy even though there's a 27017 standard for privacy protection, which is an ally of 27002. So you see, they always have a way of releasing standards in a cycle. Now, as we are introducing the standard, 27001 has benefits, which is why organizations go for it, which is why individuals also get certified as lead auditors or lead implementers. 27001 helps people realize that information is now an important business asset. Organizations want to know where their information is. They want to, as an example, it could be intellectual property, it could be personal data, it could be health information. All of this is, and that's why you hear talk about identity theft. Information is a key asset. It could even be in military and government. And as they say, loose lips sink ships. Imagine the war going on now between Ukraine and Russia. Each side, if they get the right information, would have the advantage over the other side. So you see, it's not just a business asset. Information is a key asset in so many spheres. And another benefit of 27001 is that it provides a systematic approach to information security management. And that's why it is also referred to as an ISMS, an information security management system, because it requires the involvement of everyone in an establishment, from management, middle management, and even operators. As a matter of fact, it requires the engagement of external stakeholders as well. So it is a total system approach. It provides clarity in definition of security-related authorities and responsibilities in its requirements. It also benefits in the fact that you would have an information security management system. You'll be managing all aspects of your information security. So you would reduce security breaches, you would improve the identification of incidents and everything that needs to do in management in terms of the provision of resources, the provision of the time, of the responsibilities and structure, and also of the money, the budget. So it will result in improvement of your security practice and a reduction in breaches, and consequentially as well, better compliance with laws, regulations, and your contractual obligations as well. All of this would then, of course, enhance your corporate image and give you a competitive advantage. So you see, and this is not even exhaustive. It all forms part of the justification for going to certify to ISO 27001 and looking for it as a way of managing your security. Now, the certification bit, it's a way of going through a journey to say, we're going to get all the documentation we need, like your policies, your procedures, and other documentation guidance together. We're going to have a structure, give someone a detailed responsibility to manage security, and then, of course, go on a journey to get certified. The certification is optional. Some implement 27001 as best practice, but there are also times when you have a legal requirement to do so as an equivalent of some other laws and regulation, or you might be engaged in a relationship with entities like governments, and they will say, hey, before we give you any contract, we want you to get certified. Or it could be contractual obligations with your suppliers and partners and others as such that would require you to get ISO 27001 before they would trust you with their own information or information they've collected from one place or the other. So the certification is a way of attesting that the practices, your system, security management system is good. Imagine that an entity exists and is just doing best practice. You are then engaging with a number of entities and organizations. Each one might want to be sure that your security is up to scratch, and they would want to have the right to audit, come into your premises and say, hey, where's your policy? Where's your what's your firewall rule like? And blah, blah, blah. It'll take you away from your primary area of products or services. So the certification is one way of saying, hey, an external auditor has come to audit us, and here's the certificate. Each of our suppliers, partners, and everybody else you interact with don't then have to come and audit you. That certificate by an independent body proves that your processes, your policies, your practices, and management commitment as well is exactly what is required to do. So that's the benefit of certification. And you have a number of certification bodies. You have the Bureau Veritas, the British Assessment Bureau, you have the BSI, you have the DNV and the SGSs. What criteria you use in selecting certification bodies will be your industry, what management system you want to go for, the scope of coverage. Can they do an integrated management system? If you have more than one management system, like quality, like environmental, like health and safety. So you have a way of writing out what your criteria is before selecting one certification body or the other. Sam, you want to ask a question? I can see you muted. You unmuted?
Yeah. So just to help most of my students, sorry, just a bit of icebreaker here. I know you're into into that mood. So while you were talking, I'm just wondering, you mentioned a few things that kind of, I picked interest in it. You were talking about a certification body, and you said, your choice of certification body, could be driven by the industry where you find yourself. All right. So if we make this a little bit practical, assuming, I've been hired, to come and support the implementation of ISO 27001 for an energy company. All right. I mean, if I have to, so let's say they give me that liberty, so go and look for a certification body. All right. What would be the right choice? And what would be, the reason? What would be the right choice of the certification body? And what would be the reason that I have to present to my bosses to say, oh, among those three, I've chosen this because of X, Y, and Z?
Fantastic question. Now, you see, it all comes with experience. So if you've gone on a journey and had an organization get certified, if the experience is a good one, you would remember it. And in terms of energy, as you mentioned, SGS is known for that. So because I've worked in oil and gas, Shell, and it was to get different locations globally certified to PCI DSS and to ISO, connecting them. SGS has a reputation for oil and gas and energy as well. But of course, you can't just use only that as a criteria. Cost then comes in, because certification can be for big companies, it can be for small, it can be for medium-sized companies. But for experience in that sector, SGS trumps the others. But then you need to consider pricing. And the behind the scenes of this reputation is the quality of the auditors. So if I have done audits in oil and gas before and I move to a certification body, I take that experience with me. So you see that getting certified individually to lead auditor or lead implementer opens up opportunities as well. You can work for the organizations that want to get certified. You can also work for the auditing bodies, the certification bodies that would go and audit those bodies that want to get certified. And of course, you can even be a consultant on your own and float either way. You can be an implementer today, be an auditor tomorrow in different organizations.
Okay.
I hope that answers.
Yeah, it does answer my question. I believe everybody's listening. So 2 things you said there. 2 criteria would be the experience of that certification body. That would be one reason why you would choose them over the other. And 2 would mainly also be driven by cost as well. All right. Okay, so thank you for that. The second question before, I let you, get into other areas that you wanted to cover tonight is, so I want you to imagine that I've been hired as a lead implementer of ISO 27000, and where I'm going to be working, or where I've been hired to do my job, they're already certified. All right. And when they were certified to the older version. Maybe it's 2013, and we have 2000 and the newer version. This is 2022 or 2018.
22.
22, sorry,
It's,
apologies.
it's, it's just less than 2 months old. It's a
All
new
right,
baby.
so the 22 version. So let's say I'm coming from 2013 to 22 version at the moment. So without actually letting a lot out, not letting a lot, giving a lot away, if you can just give me maybe 2 or 3 or 4 tips,
Yeah.
that I do,
Okay. Very
considering
good.
when I move,
I'll give you an introductory answer because I've also got it in a slide ahead. But
okay.
just from a high level, first, the accreditation bodies need to transit to the new standard. They haven't done that yet. Second, the certification bodies need to transit to the new standard as well. They haven't done that. And then the organizations that are certified can then do that. Because what it means is, even if organizations say, hey, we now know what to do, we want to get certified to the new version, who would certify you? Those ones have to be ready. So those ones aren't ready yet. And the same thing with the accreditation bodies that give the accreditation to the certification bodies. Those ones too are not ready. Only ISO has brought out the standard. So, and ISO typically gives timeframes and deadlines for all of these changes to happen. What are those deadlines? 3 years from the date of release, which is October 2025. So there's ample time, because from when it's released, that's how ISO works. It gives you a time frame to get certified, but that's not saying you won't do your gap analysis, you won't do your audits, you won't do your roadmaps. But the deadline, if by 2025 you haven't transited to the new standard, then of course it affects you.
All right. So he answers my question. So I think to our audience now, so they have an advantage, and the advantage is for anybody that learns this and understand how it works. So those are the people that would hire, that would help organization to do the gap analysis and perhaps build a roadmap.
100%.
Okay, thank you.
And like I said, it's already a topic in board meetings, hot topic, in fact. Olu Abiala has got his hand up. Yes, Olu.
Oh, sorry. That's been answered while the question was going on. Sorry, I forgot to put it.
No, that's fine. That's okay. No problem. So the typical steps involved in ISO 27001 certification is a gap analysis. So you would say, right, what's the gap? And don't forget, that's one of the things we're giving you for attending this course tonight, this presentation tonight, a gap analysis that would help you understand your organization, its context, the boundary of the ISMS, where it is at the moment, where it wants to get to, which would be certification, and what the gaps are. Following that, an action plan to get you from where you are to where you need to get to. So a gap analysis would be typical first step of opportunity. This is, of course, high-level coverage. Then an initial review and planning, finding the gaps, which is from the gap analysis, creating an action plan, assigning the role to lead in a project to someone like a senior project manager or a security person with project knowledge, or a combination of security professional and a professional project manager as well, all depending on the structure of the organization. And then, of course, documentation, the preparation of your policies, your manuals, your forms, mandatory documents, and then, of course, discretionary ones as well. Getting all those things, because it means you are keeping a record of your journey. Oh, we have commitment, we have objectives. The objectives are stated in our policies. We have mission, we have a vision, we have aligned. Everything you do documented, because nowadays, and as COVID has come and maybe gone or gone some way, many certification bodies can now do a remote audit. Okay, so your documentation, if you can use a document management system, SharePoint or anything, that also works, but at least have it organized. Organization is a very, very important thing. Some places where I've worked, they don't regard it, but you see, they budget 2 weeks for an audit as an example, And when they are not organized, don't forget that you pay for every day that the auditors are there. If your work is not, if your documents are not properly organized, they can spend 3, sometimes 4 weeks, double what you budgeted to pay for them to be around. Of course, some less complex places takes just a matter of days to do those audits, and if you've been certified before, it's even less. But if it's the first time, then sometimes disorganization can be a real pain in the neck. Then you implement the system as per what you've drawn out in your roadmap and in your manual. You can then do an awareness training. So you do a specific focus training for those that will be directly involved in the ISMS. Then everybody else gets an awareness of the risks and threats that the organization is faced with. Then you will do your internal audits. So you have planned what to do, you have implemented. Now you are checking what you've implemented, and you do a management review meeting out of the audit. So the audit feeds into the management review meeting, and you start to do you can then plan for your certification. So these are the steps involved in that journey. Yes, Samari. Victor, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. I wanted to ask, how long do you think this step will take? If, say, you're being recruited in a new company, and obviously they are still using the old version of 2013, and
right.
now you're in as the when I say the lead expert in ISO 27001, how long do you think it would take for you to get to the final assessment stage?
Okay, it all depends. There's not a one size fit all, and the reason why it's not, but I'll give you an average, but I need to explain it first before I tell you that. It requires the cooperation of management. It requires the cooperation of business unit managers as well, and then the cooperation of the players, operators as well. It depends on what you get from the gap analysis, because what the gap analysis is showing you is, oh, this is how far we are off from where we were to where we need to get to, plus how complex is the environment, how sophisticated, how automated, are they all manual? So all of these things have they all contribute in saying how long it'll last. But for an organization that's been certified, they are maybe mixed manual, mixed automated systems. Not everything is manual, not everything is automated, and you get some cooperation. Some people are on holiday. Well, not that they don't cooperate, but some are not there on their desk. It can take you about 4 months, 3-4 months to be ready with all the meetings, all the documentation updated, approvals, and things like that. Okay, but for organizations that are doing it fresh, it will take up to 9 months. So if it's the first time you're going to get this, it might take you up to 9 months, because the implementation step alone must run for 3 months. That step alone must be allowed to operate for 3 months.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. You're welcome. Of course, certificates last for 3 years. That's an ISO standard. And even if you got certified lead auditor or lead implementer, it would last for 3 years. A certified company needs to perform satisfactorily in the surveillance audits. So for those that are already certified, these surveillance audits typically are an interval of 6 to 12 months. The standard is annual, but if there's a reason to audit them more frequently, it could be every 6 months. So you could get 2 audits in 1 year, depending if your ISMS is failing, is not very effective, or there are reports like complaints and feedback, and it's spotted by the certification body. They might do these surveillance audits even more frequently than that once a year. Okay, but typically the certificate lasts for 3 years, less 1 day. So if you get certified today, the 15th of December, the recertification, the surveillance audits will be next year, 14th of December, if it's not a weekend. And then the recertification will be 3 years, less 1 day as well. So this standard has gone through an evolution. And if you recall, for those of you who are familiar already, it started in 95. Then in 2005, we had a version that was reviewed, and then the 2013 released. Of course, it all started as a British standard, even much longer than that before it evolved to become an international standard. And the ISO worked in conjunction with the International Electrotechnical Committee to bring out this. And now it has now become, it is now covering information security, cybersecurity, and privacy protection. Over the years, they have tried to distinguish information security from computer security, network security, and cybersecurity. And what this standard has now tried to do is to bring them all under information security, because information security is the umbrella body. Cybersecurity is consumed by information security, because cybersecurity is network security on the net in cyberspace. So it's more technical, and privacy, of course, has to do with data protection, and information security is the mother of everything. Anywhere information exists, whether in technology, if we were concerned about protecting what we're saying now, that gets covered under information security. So that's why this evolution, if you like. Please don't mind me. I like going into the world of science. So if you see these terms, evolution and blah, 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 it's just my other love showing. So as for the other parts within the standard, clauses 4 to 10 have also undergone some changes, some minor changes, and in some parts, some major changes. That's what I've tried to show. It's not, this course is not for all of ISO 27001. We've done the introduction of what it means, but in terms of the clauses and showing the changes, we've only brought out 20,022 version changes. Okay, excuse me. And in showing those changes, we are relating it back to the 2013 version. Okay, so that's what this presentation is about tonight. So let's now look into each of these in more detail. We'll look at major changes and we'll look at minor changes. And please, as usual, at any point, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. So what are the major changes? This is a summary of the changes, and then we'll show you page by page what they are. For the major changes, 4.4 and 8.1. 4.4 and 8.1 are taken from this strategic clause between clause 4 to 10, not from the annex. So they are major changes in the strategic level. 4.4 is where you are supposed to declare an ISMS as on its way or implemented. At least show a commitment to say we are implementing an ISMS. And it's a significant change where it says the ISMS must be based on established processes, their interdependencies, and also their interactions. So show us your processes. Oh, we've got sales and marketing, we've got production, we've got logistics, show us all your business functions, your processes. What are their interdependencies and what are their interactions? You have to show now. So it means organizations have to understand the way the business flows. Where is information coming in? What do we do in the information and where does it go out? So input, processing, and output must be shown now. And it's significant. So that is one gap. If you didn't have it before, your gap must show, oh, now we have to do this. We weren't doing it before. This is what we need to do now. It's a significant part where you do your gap. Another one, and as you can imagine, Samari, your question. So how long will it take us to go from where we were to now? Oh, the way we were before, we just knew what we needed to do. To help you design your process, you might already have people to do that within your business, but then another organization might not have that. So for you as a consultant in ISO 27001, you look at where the organization is. What you find when you do the gap analysis, will inform how long it will take them. So you can see it will not be the same for every business. They might say, oh, we need to employ someone. How long it will take them to interview that person might be different. Some organizations' process in interview might just be 2 steps. Another organization, they have 5 steps. You have to go to our camp in Cambridge for one of the interviews and things like that. So it's not always the same time scale for everyone. 8.1 is another area of significant change where it says organizations must consider processes, their operational planning and control to measure the risks in those processes as well. So in the past, operational planning and control was strictly considering risk that you planned, now implemented. That was just it. But now you must consider your operational planning and control to implement measures to handle risk in those areas as well. So it's a significant change in the statement, but it has implications in what you do on the ground. So we are going to look at clause 4.4, which is a place of change. But of course, I didn't mention it in this. There's also a minor change in 4.2. So 4.2 we'll look at later. It has also changed. So from clause 4 has 4 subclauses. 4.4 is one of those major changes where it says the organization shall establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve. Now you can see that what it's saying is establish an ISMS. So get it going. Do an ISMS. So plan, implement, maintain, review, check the ISMS, and continually improve it. So there's a PDCA in that statement, including the processes needed and their interactions in accordance with the requirements of the document. So that's 4.4. Okay. Clause 8 has 3 parts. And as we said, I'll take you back some slides. 8.1 is another significant area of change, where it says you must consider processes and their operational planning and control. And this is what it says in 8.1. That the organization shall plan, implement, and control the processes needed to meet the requirements to implement the actions determined in clause 6. So you have to refer back to clause 6. Clause 6 is about risks and opportunities, things that could have an impact on your journey and your objectives, and of course, opportunities, things that would be of benefit to the organization out of a risk assessment. Oops. So when you plan your audit, 8.1 says, plan, implement, and control your processes via your business functions. Establish criteria for the processes, implement controls for them, control your planned changes. Now, let me be the one to ask the question so that I hear other people's voices. How will you control planned changes and review the consequences of unintended changes? That's a key part of this clause. How would you do that?
Hi, can you come again with the question again, please?
How would you, it says, within the clause, it says, the organization shall control planned changes and review the consequences of unintended changes. How would you advise an organization to comply to that requirement?
Well, I'll just give it a shot. So we'll look at change management, if that is applicable here. And that would go into looking at the organizational policies and procedures, and also not forgetting the fact that there are controls that should go along with it.
Very good.
Yeah,
that's correct. Now you see, plan changes means you have a procedure for changes. So change management procedure exists. But what about consequences for unintended changes? So we have a change management process for what we plan. You make a request, you deliberate on the changes, you measure the potential impact, and you do yeah, go ahead, or no, delay it until so and so time. That is a planned change. We know when we're going to do that change. We know what is going to affect, and we know we put on measures to minimize the impact it could have. But what about those things you don't plan? The consequences of unintended changes. How would you control it? It's asking you to control planned changes and control unintended changes as well.
Can I have a go?
Yes, don't forget to introduce yourself.
My name is Tolu. I think that would be covered under the BCP, Business Continuity Plan, in terms of, the effect of, if there's an adverse effect that potentially shuts down the business, then how will the business continue? What was the contingency plan? For that. And of course, if there's a DR plan in place as well, like a disaster recovery type of thing, like failover test and all that sort of thing, I think that would be, that would cover the unplanned changes.
That's very good. And don't forget, this all comes under the umbrella of operational planning and control. So it means the organization has given the responsibilities to people that are in charge of business areas or departments. Make sure there is someone that plans and controls your operation. And in this case, changes, which we said is covered by change management, and unintended changes, hopefully by a business continuity and disaster recovery procedure. Absolutely. And out of that, you have plans as well. Those plans, you must practice, exercise, and test them to be sure that come the day of an interruption or a disruption, that you can actually continue. Very good.
Roy.
Yes.
See why, that was a very good question. And the two gentlemen that answered those questions, they were also spot on as well.
They were on this. Yeah.
Yeah. So, while I was thinking about their answers, I don't know, and you don't have to commit to this one actually, whether the overall package that you kind of have, with the training would cover something around. Okay, so I'm just thinking about what you're showing us now, and the overall effect of this change. So because we're just looking at this change that from just one viewpoint, that someone is certified or an organization is getting certified, but it's beyond really. Because if you look at the overall effect of 27001, across other 27,100 series of ISO family, then across other regulation and standard. So I'm thinking beyond what we're just talking about now, because the moment it comes into effect, it's just beyond the certification, isn't it? Then organizations would have to take that and start to map it out, to various other standards to see the effect on it, where it fits in. Earlier you were talking about integrated audit. You mentioned it, but you didn't go. So I can
details.
So I can imagine if you're doing integrated audit, where you have to map, this new version, to 9001, where map it out, 27,017, 27,018. Someone was talking about change management earlier on, where you have to think about, what's the effect on ITIL? Then Tolu was talking about BCP. So you could see the overall effect across all of that domains as well. So I think, again, it's a big advantage for anyone that wanted to, take this and learn it.
Yeah. And
so
you see,
beyond justification, is way beyond that. Because there's a big change that would affect so many other things or so many other areas.
100%. And in many parts, they've tried to be explicit in their requirement to say, know your processes, draw it out. As you can see, it says, I'll just take you back there, where it says, you must consider your processes in your operational planning and control and implement. So you must do it. It's now a requirement. It's not, oh, we will select this, we will not do it this way, or even apply the requirement based on your own risk assessment. Now it is more explicit in some of the requirements, different from how it was in 2013 version. So you must consider your other processes, how they interact, their interdependencies, which could be business continuity, which could be quality, which could be the environment even as well. Because if you have a physical office, physical controls come into play, environmental controls then come into play, and you have to show all of those things. Okay, so now we'll look at some minor clarifications. We'll just look at major changes within clause 4 to 10. And within clause 4 to 10, there are also minor clarifications. Before we go to the annex, as we said in our advert in the flyer. Now, these are the summary of changes within the minor clarifications within clause 4 to 10. There is a minor change in 4.1, 4.2, 5.3, 7.4, 9.2, 9.3, 10.1, and 10.2. And these are the summary. In the previous version, it was referencing clause 5.3 in 31,000-2009. So Wale, just what you said just now about cross-referencing other standards, 31,000 is the generic risk management standard. Yes, so it was referencing 2009, but this current version references 31,000 2018 clause 5.4.1, where it says understand your own organization and everything about it is context, where you are, your location, what you do, who you do it with, your processes, your products, your services, your suppliers, your laws, your regulation. Know everything, your weaknesses, your strengths, the threats, or what opportunities you have, everything about the organization. But now it references 31,000 2018 clause 5.4.1. So that is the minor clarification in that. Just one line. 4.2 as well. In the previous version, there was 4.2a, 4.2b, 4.2c. Now, sorry, only 4.2a and b. Now there is a 4.2c in this current version. In clause 5.3, there's now an explicit requirement that responsibilities and roles related to information security are made known within the organization. So it means not only would you assign someone information security responsibilities, you communicate it to them in terms of their job description or a mandate, but that even people know. So it's not like, oh, who is handling your security? Oh, it's the technical manager. The role and title must be known that this is the person in charge of information security. So it's explicit. No longer, oh, we think this should be done by this person or that person. It's now everyone in the organization has to know who is in charge of information security by name and by responsibility. And then clause 7.4 has now added how to communicate. So in the past, it was what to communicate, who to communicate to, when to communicate, why as in an objective. Now they've added a how. That means you need to know how you're communicating. Now, you see, the good thing for some organizations, I'm going to blow my horn here a bit. The communication plan I've always had, my communication template I've created was a who, what, when, where, why, and how. So that has always existed. For those who have worked with me, they don't have a gap there because it's saying show how, but we've been doing it. Okay, and that answers your question as well, Samari. Some organizations would have done some of these things, so they wouldn't have a gap in there. Clause 9.2 for internal audit has now been subdivided into 9.2.1 and 9.2.2. It was just a 9.2 in the past. 9.3 also has now been subdivided into 1, 2, and 3, when it was only 9.3 before. Clause 10.1 and 10.2 was just a switch of places, just swapped it around to show that continual improvement should come before non-conformity and corrective action. We've always argued that. So ISO has listened and they've now effected a change. So it just swaps places, 10.1 and 10.2. Any questions?
You know, when you're mentioning the additions of, sorry, I didn't say, I wanted to say something first.
No,
My
that's all right.
apologies. For the 4.2,
yeah,
you said there was the extra sub added to it was a C, and then
yeah.
the 9.2, the internal audit one, where it's been, that's not the one that's been
subdivided.
The subdivided ones and the others. Do you have a copy of these so we get to see exactly what the contents are?
Oh, I've done that already. There are slides coming that show that. Don't worry.
Okay.
And
all right, thank you.
Yeah, one of the packages we'll give you is the gap analysis that shows the differences as well. So yes,
Awesome.
it's coming. Yeah. So I'll just like we did for the major changes, we've done the same for the minor changes to show them in flow. But of course, we're just picking out where it has changed rather than the whole standard. So I'll show you that addition in 4.2.
Hi, Roy.
Hi.
Hi, this is Funke. Quick question.
Okay.
About the organizational roles and responsibility. I think my question here is, I know you said it has to be explicit.
Yeah.
So in terms of, say, for example, we have information security department, we have the CISO, different people. So how do we kind of make that known? So do we need just one person to say, Funke, you're in charge of ISO 27001, or what exactly do we need to do?
Yeah. So in that case, the CISO, of course, the title already says so. The title is one thing. The job description must also say what their responsibilities are. And then if you have an information security management system responsibility, and it's Funke that is going to do that, that must be explicit. It's not today Funke is saying it, and not only that is explicit, that people know that you are the one in charge.
Okay.
So they don't. It shouldn't be. We have 5 information security managers in ranking. Which one of them is in charge of the ISMS? It has to be explicit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No problem. So you see, we talked about 4.1 referring to 31,000/2018, and there it is. Determining the issues refers to establishing the external and internal context of the organization considered in clause 5. Wait 1 second, I can see what's showing there. 5.4.1, of course, or 31,000/2018. 4.2, as you can see, now has a C. It was just A and B. Now it has a third part. Which of these requirements will be addressed? So I'll just read everything. That the organization shall determine interested parties that are relevant to the information security management system. So you would have a record of who your interested parties are. You can do it in whatever style fits you, either in categories, groups, or just a listing of them. B, determine the relevant requirements of the interested parties. So you need to not only list them, but also flesh out what they require of you. Remember, the ISMS is all about your legal requirements, your regulatory requirements, your contractual obligations, and other interested parties. So all of this, who are the stakeholders? What do they require of you? Your SLAs and everything else that they require from you. Okay, so you must flesh out the requirements. And then third, which of these requirements will be addressed through the information security management system? You need to also say, right, our ISMS will satisfy this, or our QMS will satisfy the rest. So you need to, the third one now is which of these will be addressed through the ISMS. And the reason for that is because some organizations in the past, if you implement an ISMS, it also delivers some of the things in other management systems, like quality, like physical security. So they want to now know which ones will be addressed through your ISMS. Okay. 5.3, the change here too. Then 1 second, I'm going to look at the summary so that I'll come back here. I can't remember what the change is here. Yeah, the responsibilities one, being explicit, of course. So top management shall ensure that the responsibilities and authorities. Now this one, it's in the supplementary explanation that it says you should be explicit in saying who is responsible for the ISMS. And that's why it says top management can also assign responsibilities and authorities for reporting the performance of the ISMS within the organization. So not only will you assign responsibilities, you will ensure that it conforms to the requirements of the standard and that you are reporting on the performance of it. How do you think you will report on the performance of the ISMS to top management? What are the ways to report? Anyone? Either what you're currently doing. Review meetings, very good. How frequent are these review meetings?
It depends on the organizational timetable, I suppose. If it's monthly, if it's quarterly, or.
Okay. The requirement is that at least once a year. That's what the requirement is. But if your risks are high enough, you can do them more frequently. Besides, you should also have, because it becomes more difficult if you have manual, it should be such that at any point in time, you want to know what your status is in terms of showing responsibility, leadership, and commitment. I'm committed. And at any time they call you, what is your risk status? You can tell. It's difficult if you're doing it manually, because if you've got a spreadsheet, people have to update it here. But if you're capturing all this automatically, at any point, what's the time now? The time is 4 minutes past 8 p.m. If it's 4 past 8, you want to know your risk status, you can find it. If it's at midnight and you want to, you can do it. If it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, at any moment, you know what your risk status is. That's what this is about, because the ISMS is actually based on a risk assessment. So how would you not know your risk status at any point in time? If it changes, it is captured. And the more automated you are, the easier it is to know your risk status. Yeah, so sorry, there's something I need to say there too. Sorry, Shaun, just one more statement to make. Shaun, I won't forget you, but please put your hand down. I want to ask a question, and then I want to see hands up when I ask the question. How many of us know the 3 lines of defense? Hands up if you know the 3 lines of defense. Okay, Tolu. Anybody else? The 3 lines of defense. Okay. Tolu, do you? Yeah, well done, Afolabi. Since I've heard Tolu speak before, Afolabi, do you want to explain to us? Okay, Samari also knows. Afolabi, do you want to explain it to us?
Okay. Good evening, everybody. The first line of defense is at the point the business owners and the supplier relationship. So at that point, they deal with policies, implementation of policies, and controls. And the second line of defense is usually the third party risk analysts. So they deal with compliance, third party relationships. So they work closely with the first line of defense, and the third line of defense is the auditing, independent audit. So they deal with continuous monitoring, making sure that they work independently from the first and the second line, and making sure that they are all compliant and they work according to the policies of the organization.
Okay, very good. We've heard Samari before. Jimmy. Come on, Jimmy. We can't hear you, Jimmy. Okay. Samari, do you want to then take on then? I don't know what's wrong with Jimmy's mic.
I think it's the same as my my contemporary has already answered. First line is risk owners, second line is risk oversight, and the third one is risk assurance.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I can hear you now. Yes, Jimmy.
Yeah. Okay. So your first line of defense are your operators. Your second line would be the risk managers, and then your third would be the compliance.
Okay. Very good. So you've got internal controls or management implemented controls in your first line of defense. You're monitoring, as an example. Yeah. Operators, operational controls, what you've got running and that you're getting. So you are required to know the performance of your risk measures at any point in time. And that's what you implement in your first line of defense. Your second line is another stakeholder, like another unit, business unit, or your risk unit, your compliance unit, or not audit now, financial unit, if they've got that monitoring responsibility, looking or having an oversight over that primary business area that have implemented internal controls. And then your third line of defense is internal audit. So you see, you can do it to the minute operationally. I can tell what my status is to the minute with your internal controls. And that gets reported up to the oversight function that don't necessarily have to do it as frequently as your internal controls. Yeah, so your operation, your controls at the control level is working as close as possible to how you operate as well. Then your second line of defense doesn't have to be that frequent. And of course, the internal audit can be scheduled every quarter, every month, or whatever, depending on your risk status, all in preparation for the external audits and regulators. And each one reporting to different parts of the business. Internal audit could report to top management or to an audit committee or to the board, and then to executive management, first line and second line of defense, they report to that line. So this gets, your performance gets that oversight it needs. 7.4 also has changed. Remember, I said it has now added a how. In the past, it was what to communicate, when to communicate, with whom to communicate, and of course, the why, because you determine the need for it. But now it has a D, how to communicate, pardon me. So that's the change in 7.4. What do we mean by this how to communicate? How would you interpret this requirement? Yes, go ahead.
Say if you're communicating via